Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 11 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of the A Song of Ice and Fire series by George Martin. Today we're discussing chapter 10 of A Game of Thrones, Jon 2.
And as always, our plan is to chat about the chapter without spoiling anything that is to come, and what we hope is an entertaining half hour for everyone.
We'll summarise what's happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and if we've got some, cover some reader mail. Be sure to check out our show notes. They provide you some additional information about the characters and other things of note about the chapter.
And hey, if you like what we're doing, please consider supporting the show by leaving a review on iTunes or podchaser.com. That would really help us get the word out, and if you do, we promise to be your best friends.
Yeah, definitely. How's things?
All right. Yeah. How about you?
We both had car issues this week.
We did.
Yours was worse than mine.
It did leave me stranded in the middle of nowhere for an hour.
Man, that's. I'm sorry.
Well,
I hate car things. But my car thing, my wife got a flat tire, and a guy fixed it for her completely at a gas station without any money changing hands or anything. He just a good Samaritan, just fixed it for her, and made me believe in human nature a little bit.
Yeah. I did not have that.
No, you didn't.
I had AAA, so a guy did come and tow my car to a shop. So
was he a character?
He was a character. He was quite the character. Very interesting man. He kept talking to me about cars, about his truck, things about his truck, and I had nothing else to do but go, "Oh, right, yeah." But I get in the cab of his tow truck with him, and I go to grab my seatbelt, and he goes, "You don't need to worry about seatbelts." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Well, I'm glad you're still with us. All right, let's get down to business.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll start with a quick recap of what Jon was up to before this chapter. So previously we found Jon at the feast to welcome the royal family to Winterfell. He was banished from the high table by Lady Catelyn. He sat in the back with the unwashed masses. He asked his uncle Benjen to take him to Castle Black. Benjen basically said no. Jon ran out of the hall, met up with Tyrion Lannister. Since then, Ned and Cat have decided that it is a good idea for him to go to the Night's Watch. Right. We also, last time we saw him, he was watching his half-brother's spar with the princes in the company of Arya.
Right.
So, Mackelly, why don't you give us a summary of this chapter?
All right. Jon hesitates before going into the room where his brother Bran lays alive but unconscious. When he enters, Lady Catelyn questions why he's there and tells him that he isn't wanted. She threatens to call the guards, but Jon, remembering that he is soon to be a brother of the Night's Watch, decides to stand up to her. He goes to Bran and holds his hand. Bran is nothing but skin and bones, his legs bent in ways that makes Jon sick. After saying his tearful goodbyes to his brother, Catelyn tells him that she prayed for Bran to be allowed to stay in Winterfell, and now she's unfortunately gotten her wish. When Jon tells her it wasn't her fault, she responds that she doesn't need his pity. As Jon goes to leave, Catelyn calls his name, something she's never done before. He stops. Catelyn looks at him for possibly the last time and tells him it should have been him.
Oh.
Outside, Jon finds Robb shouting directions to the men, his wolf Westwind by his side. Jon puts Robb's mind at ease, telling him that Catelyn was very kind to him while he visited Bran. They say their goodbyes and fiercely embrace. Then Jon leaves for one final goodbye. After a stop in the armory, Jon visits Arya's room. She and Nymeria are packing for the trip to King's Landing. Arya and Septa Mordane have different ideas about the efficacy of allowing Nymeria to help with folding and packing of clothes.
I might be with Septa Mordane on this one.
What's a little wolf slobber? Yeah. Arya runs to Jon and hugs him tightly. Jon gives her a small, thin-bladed sword he's had made for her. Together they name it Needle, because we know how much she loves to sew. Then he gives her a bit of advice that became a catchphrase in the show. Stick them with the pointy end.
Alright, so, Catelyn was pretty harsh on poor Jon.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, he's effectively lost his brother. Won't ever get to say a proper goodbye.
Yep, good luck in your sad life at the wall.
Yeah.
You should be the one laying in this bed.
Yeah, she definitely could have handled that just a tiny bit differently. She's got what she wants from him. He's going out of the picture. She won't have to deal with him.
Yeah.
She must know that even though she doesn't like him, her children do.
Right, yeah.
So they would want the chance to say goodbye. So.
But she hasn't left the room since the incident. I'm talking meals, sleep, chamber pots, the whole deal.
Yeah, can't be nice in there.
But because of her constant presence, it's basically like a bear, like a bear watching out over over Bran. John has pretty much stayed away. So this was his last chance. It was either now or never, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, she could have done anything. Like, she could have knitted him a black scarf for his time on the wall. It would have been come in handy. It would have made him more keen to go to the wall, having a nice warm black scarf to wear.
And maybe it would have just been a token of, hey, I know we weren't friends, but good luck on your journey.
And the other thing about that is that if you say a couple of nice things, like, you could get him to hurry up and say his vows to take him. We were talking about this last time we talked about Cat, that she might be concerned that he or his offspring could have a claim to the throne of Winterfell.
Yeah. Take those vows quick.
Take those
vows
quick.
Scarf, get going.
Yeah. There were ways to handle this that weren't quite so. I mean, she's in a bad situation. We've got to bear that in mind.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Cat.
But it's also understandable why he was so hesitant to go in the room.
Yeah.
I think he could have expected that sort of reaction.
Yeah.
But she set the tone right off the bat with, "What are you doing here?" The minute he walks into the room. Even when he pleads with her, she doubles down with, "We don't want you here." And then threatens to call the guards.
Yeah. So you've noticed that he kept the bed between him and her. But actually, I was thinking about that. It'd be a bit weird to be on the same side of the bed as her, really. I mean, we'd be jostling for no reason. So
there's a whole empty side of the bed over there.
I mean, if the bed was up against the wall, sure. But if the bed's not up against the wall, I would go to the other side to stay away from her.
Although it didn't hurt that the bed was
between them. I would keep the bed between me and someone who hated me as much as Cat clearly hates him.
He's not a black brother quite yet.
No.
So he's not used to dealing with others.
I don't really think the vows would make me any more keen to be within striking distance of Cat Stark if I was Jon Snow.
True.
Doesn't look great for Bran.
No.
Bent and broken.
Yep. Jon thinks the fall has shrunken him.
He was already a little pipsqueak to begin with. Bran had wanted to be a knight, to be in the King's Guard.
Yeah.
Now he'll be lucky to survive. It certainly doesn't look good for him walking again.
No. Yeah, we learned that in the chapter where he fell. He was going on and on about Sir Barristan Selmy.
That's right.
How he couldn't wait to get to King's Landing and meet him, and how he was someday going to be a member of the King's Guard.
There was just a chance in this chapter for a bit of a thaw between them when Catelyn expresses her vulnerability and how her answered prayers had backfired on her and how she felt guilt about that.
Right. Yeah. I feel like because she let her guard down, I think she realized she let her guard down when he gave her sympathy, which was a really nice thing to do. And I think that maybe even made her more annoyed. And that's why she lashed out at him that, "I don't need your," what was it? "I don't need your sympathy.
Your pity," I think it was.
Yeah, I don't need your pity. Yeah, could have been a nice moment, but it was not to be, I guess. And I still... like just about every chapter that deals with Jon or Catelyn to this point, I keep bringing this up, but I still think part of her dislike, I know we've gone over many reasons why she has this incredible dislike for him, but I still think part of it is because she knows that he's a really good guy, and that might get under her skin even more. Like maybe if he were more Joffrey-like, she would just be like, yeah, he's a jerk, and just not be so cruel to him. But maybe because he's so good and so likable that it makes her even more annoyed and need to try and tear him down more frequently.
I wonder if she does see it, though. I mean, I think she probably sees it through her children, because I'm sure that Bran and Arya and Robb, perhaps, are always telling her nice things about Jon.
Yeah, maybe.
But I'm not sure she would see it herself. I know from my own experience, people who don't like me, when I'm around them, I don't feel myself. I don't feel like I'm being myself around them.
Such a person exists?
Well...
theoretically, if someone didn't like it.
They're legion. So I do wonder if she really does see that as clearly as we do. We see him in his natural habitat, and he's a great kid.
It'd be hard not to, though. He's just like even there, she,
had been mean to him.
Yeah.
She opened a door for him to be nice. He jumped into it.
Right.
And she slammed his fingers in it.
Yeah. To me, it's kind of like the concept of fan base envy. Mm-hmm. People hate, I don't know, hate's a strong word. People dislike and say negative things about really talented athletes, for instance, like Sidney Crosby or Tom Brady or I don't know.
Since we have an international listener base, I'll throw in Ronaldo or Lionel Messi.
Right. But because they're not on, those players aren't on their team.
Yes.
But if by some miracle, all of a sudden, hey, Tom Brady is now on my team. Oh, he's the greatest player of all time. I love Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
No, it's true. If suddenly Jon Snow was her true-born son, I'm sure she'd be very fond of him.
You know what? He's a really great guy. I knew it all along.
So then Jon goes out to see Robb, and we see him defend Catelyn to Robb.
Yeah, puts Robb's mind at ease.
Not to preempt the comparison to the TV show, but that scene is actually captured in the TV show, but the earlier scene is way less brutal.
Oh.
So although he says, "Oh, she was very nice," she was very kind to me, in the TV show, it felt like he was actually reporting that.
Right.
Here, he's defending her. In the book, he's defending her.
Yeah,
because
it is.
She definitely wasn't.
There's no perspective you could use to
Yeah.
make that be accurate.
Yeah.
He's just putting Robb's mind at ease.
Yeah.
Obviously. But I think the it's a brief moment, but the moment between Robb and Jon is pretty telling of their relationship. The fact that Robb cares so much for Jon is telling of the kind of person that he is.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that Robb obviously was suspicious that she would have been awful to him.
So as a 14-year-old, he's aware that his mother mistreats Jon, and obviously he feels that it's not appropriate and that Jon does not deserve it. In comparison, though, it seems like Sansa leans toward Catelyn's attitude a bit. With the comment in the chapter, poor Jon, he gets jealous because he's a bastard.
Seems kind of illogical, sort of like a sort of non sequitur. He gets jealous because he's a bastard. I don't see how those two things are connected, but let's roll with it.
Okay.
So Robb is the future Lord of Winterfell. It might be, you might expect him to be the one who's most sort of disdainful of having the bastard under his feet, sort of thing.
Right.
But I guess the thing is, they're practically twins.
Right. Yeah.
Raised together, they've done everything together all this time. I'm surprised actually they don't hate each other more.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's a serious sibling rivalry opportunity there that they're missing out on. In the Catelyn 2 chapter, the one where Ned and Cat are in their bedchambers, and Maester Luwin comes in. When they're discussing what to do with Jon, and Cat says, he's not staying here, I can tell you that much. Ned starts to say that Jon and Robb are so close, and he gets cut off and he never finishes what he was going to say. But I assume it was going to be something like he had hoped to leave Jon at Winterfell to help Robb rule,
right.
That he never got a chance to finish it. So.
Yeah. So Jon confesses that the whole concept of leaving Winterfell is harder than he thought. Despite, what must be sort of ongoing mistreatment from Cat, it is the only home he's ever known.
Right. And Robb's response was interesting. He says, for me too, but he's not going anywhere. So he's obviously referring to, it's hard for me too that everyone else, that so many family members and loved ones are leaving at the same time. Yeah. His dad, his sisters are going south to King's Landing. Jon's going north to the Wall. Bran is in a very...
Not going to be the same.
Yes. So I guess there's a lot of turmoil in his life too, even though he's not really going anywhere.
Yeah, and I think you've been encouraged to see Robb grow a little bit into the role of Lord of Winterfell, but
yes.
I also think we sort of jumped to a conclusion. We didn't have much evidence to go on that he wasn't. That first chapter, the first chapter where we met them was the beheading chapter, and I wonder if they were all sort of jittery because of that.
Sure.
And so maybe they were sort of like being frivolous and jokey to sort of like hide their nerves or their horror of what they were going through.
Yeah, that's logical. That makes sense. And then the next time we meet him, he's being taunted by the younger Crown Prince, which, as a 14-year-old boy, might create some...
Especially Joffrey, because he needs...
He brings it out of people.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's good to see that Robb... he needs to step up pretty much today.
Yes.
If everybody's leaving, he's in charge.
And it seems like he's making strides toward that. It's encouraging to see him out there shouting commands to people. And
it's also a thought, actually, that just occurred to me, is that I think Ned's idea was that Catelyn would sort of be the regent and she would just sort of like bring Robb into the sort of like slowly, but of course she's essentially out of commission while she's looking over Bran the whole time. So Robb really has to step up on his own.
Yeah, we've not heard from Ned yet, but you have to assume he's dealing with similar issues, obviously, so he's probably not entirely focused and on his game, so might just be Robb holding down the fort all by himself.
And sweet scene with Jon and Arya.
It was.
She's so excited to see him. She throws her skinny arms around him. Yeah, and it is nice that this animosity towards him doesn't stretch to all the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, we're projecting a little bit of what Sansa said. She made one throwaway comment, which she might have been trying to ingratiate herself with the princess or something by saying that.
Yeah. That's a good point. We made similar judgments about Robb, and we're being shown that we might have been hasty in our. But what we've seen so far, all the other kids except for Sansa really seem to embrace Jon, which is great.
So Nymeria helping Arya to pack is kind of sweet.
It is.
Arya points at an object, Nymeria runs to fetch it.
Clearly she is better at training wolves than Bran.
Yeah, that's right. Bran was trying to get his to play fetch.
Yeah, he was having no luck. Maybe it was the stick. Maybe he needed something more interesting for...
clothes.
Yes.
And God, think about it. If only the dog had chased the stick, he wouldn't have climbed the wall.
Oh, man. Just blame it on the wolf.
Yeah. So Jon gives her a sword. He says it's small but dangerous, just like she is.
And Jon had Micken make it especially for her, which was really sweet. He was thinking, he's probably got a lot of stuff going on in preparation to leave, and he still had the wherewithal.
And you made this point that he's the one who actually names it Needle, but Arya guesses that that's what he named it.
Yeah.
They don't actually name it together.
Yeah. He says every good sword has a name or something like that, and she says, what's its name? And he says, guess. And she guesses Needle.
Yeah. And his words of advice are good. The 3 things he tells us.
Yeah.
Stick 'em with the pointy end. Get strong. And don't tell Sansa.
All good advice.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I noticed actually is there's a curious parallel between Jon 2 and Bran 2, because Bran's second chapter, which is the one where he falls from the let's say let's call a spade,
right,
when he gets pushed from the tower.
He fell, but
he did fall. That's also the chapter where Bran was trying to say his goodbyes, and then this is the chapter where Jon is trying to say his goodbyes. So they're both going through that same thing.
Jon's had more success. Bran never found anybody to say goodbye to. He got sad and ran off into the Godswoods.
That's what he did. Yeah. At least Jon was able to do it. He's a brave one.
Yes.
All right. So some background information.
Yeah. So Jon mentions to Arya, he describes Needle as of a fashion used by bravos. So let's talk a little bit about bravos real quick. Bravos are swordsmen found in the free cities of Essos. They use these slender swords for dueling, and they wear colorful finery and are often found in pairs, which is an interesting trait, I guess.
The people are, not the swords.
Yes.
Right, okay, got it.
Yes, the bravos are often found in pairs. Right. And they wander around the cities looking for fights. Anyone wearing a sword after dark can be challenged by a bravo, and they fight with little or no provocation, but they will not bother anyone without a sword. So I guess that's, if you don't want to be bothered by a bravo, just don't wear a sword after dark. And although obviously found in bravos, they're also...
the city.
Yes.
Bravos, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
They are bravos. They are found in bravos.
Yes.
Those are not the same word.
Yes, exactly. Bravos is a city. Right. Bravos are a type of people, dueler, I guess. But they are also prevalent in the other free cities, such as Pentos and Myr. And the greatest bravos in Bravos practice a style of sword fighting known as water dancing.
Interesting. So I guess presumably the origin is from Bravos. That's the similarity of names. So Needle's more of a fencing blade than the broadswords that people seem to use in Westeros. In our history, I was just looking up a bit of Wikipedia of swords.
All right.
The rapier-like swords like Needle were typically worn by civilians and therefore used in duels like it's being described here. Broadswords were generally just military. That's the sort of difference. So I wonder if that goes to the sort of relative stability and age of the two continents.
Sure.
Essos is more mature and has reached that point where people, they're not as militaristic all the time, perhaps. They're they're now trading cities rather than fighting cities.
True.
Whereas Westeros is perhaps a little more back in time.
Yeah.
A little more militaristic.
Sense.
So Bravos, the city, is one of the free cities of Essos. It's the northernmost free city and is on a promontory in the far northwest of the continent. Essos doesn't go as far north as Westeros, so it's only about the same latitude as the Eyrie in the Vale, which is hundreds of miles south of Winterfell. So you can't get quite as cold in Essos as you can in Westeros. The narrow sea is just about at its narrowest at that point. The entrance to the harbour of Bravos is bestrided by an enormous statue, the Titan of Bravos, something like our Colossus of Rhodes.
Right, sure.
It's actually a fort that can be used in the defence of the city. The city itself comprises more than 100 islands in the lagoon. They are connected by stone bridges. Evokes something like our Venice, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the topography of the north.
Okay.
I think just to give you a sense of the sort of scale of things. So Winterfell's smack in the middle of the north, basically. It's still a long journey to the wall from Winterfell. Estimates of around 630 miles or 1,000 kilometers to the wall from Winterfell.
Yeah, that's something I felt like we needed to mention. Since we're in the north right now in the book, it seems like from Winterfell to the wall might just be a quick jaunt, but 3 weeks by horse is more than a...
Yeah, I was doing some looking up at that, and it looks like 30 miles a day is a typical, what a horse can typically do. So that's where we get the 3 weeks from. So Winterfell to King's Landing, the opposite direction, is about 1,500 miles or 2,400 kilometers.
Wow.
So Robert actually made pretty good time.
Yeah.
The cart.
Those 40 horses pulled that wheelhouse pretty quickly, I guess.
So that does make sailing between the two quite a good option, because King's Landing is coastal, Winterfell is not, but there are navigable rivers in the north, so you could get fairly close. That also got me thinking about why Winterfell formed where it formed. I mean, because typically cities, ancient times, they were led by geography. Where there was a harbour, a bay where ships could come, a city would form. Where there were navigable rivers, a city would form. But I guess Winterfell, it's the hot springs.
I was going to say, it's the hot springs. Yeah. Central location and hot springs must have been the two things.
But you see, central location, that means something to us now, but then it wouldn't.
True.
What does central location mean? I mean, you just need good communications to get to and from places.
Good point.
Central wouldn't be useful if you had to go 3 weeks on a horse compared to coastal, where you might be able to do it in a couple of days.
That's a good point.
So, differences to the TV show. The meetings are a different order in the show. Jon meets Arya, then Cat and Bran, finally Robb. While picking up Needle, Jon has a conversation with Jaime Lannister.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Jaime pours scorn on the Night's Watch and their value to the Seven Kingdoms.
Interesting.
And also sort of tells Jon that he's looking forward to meeting his new comrades, all the rapists.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. It's really horrible. It's not a nice thing. And it actually made me think, I mean, given what Jaime has recently done while in Winterfell, I would be keeping a lower profile and being a bit nicer to people. Maybe he's keeping...
Do not rise any suspicions.
Exactly. But maybe that would. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that would.
True. Arya names Needle in the show?
That's right. Arya chooses the name, and Jon approves of it. Cat is mean to Jon, but nowhere near as mean. I mean, the meanest thing she says is, "You've said it, I want you to go."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty watered down compared to the book version of it.
And then what's interesting is so they don't part because Ned comes in and sort of breaks the conversation off. It's as if she was gearing up to get meaner, but she never gets the chance to say it.
Right. Okay.
So Ned interrupts it. Ned says his own goodbyes to Cat.
Okay. There with Jon?
No, Jon leaves.
Okay.
So Jon leaves at that point. Showcat definitely wants Ned to stay now. We don't hear, of course, this scene is missing from the book, so we don't hear Cat talk to Ned about whether or not.
But being that she was the one who was so insistent that he go, it seems unlikely that she's now decided, I don't want you to go.
Right. Jon and Robb's conversation is practically the same, but again, slightly weird because she literally wasn't that unkind to him. So
there's less of a lie.
Yes. A couple of scenes, I'm not sure if this is a spoiler, but a couple of scenes are added to the TV show here too. We actually see the parties leaving Winterfell. So I don't know if we can say that that's going to happen in the book. There may be more scenes in Winterfell before they leave.
Sure.
But the very next thing that happens in the TV show is we see the two parties leave, one heading north and one heading south.
Okay.
Oh, and in that scene, the reason I mentioned that is because Ned says his goodbyes to Jon and says, "You may not have my name, but you have my blood."
Right, I remember that's kind of right when they're going in their opposite directions.
Exactly when they split up. Yeah.
Yes.
And he also tells him, this is pure TV show, so we don't have to worry about it, that the next time he sees him, he'll tell him about his mother.
Right, I do remember that. Yeah, because I looked forward to that happening.
Yeah.
It's like,
we can stop speculating about who the mother
is.
He's
going to tell us.
Yeah. So pedantry corner, not to be a pedant, but Catelyn was really horrible to Jon.
Really
she didn't have to do that.
Oh, man.
Bravos, the city of Bravos, it got the mention, and so we mentioned the Titan of Bravos. I just want to say, I don't care how great the builders of yore were, a statue that's tall enough so you can sail your tallest ship between its legs, stop snickering,
Yeah, avert your eyes, madam.
is not really feasible. I mean, So the Colossus of Rhodes was one of the wonders of the world. Yeah?
Yes, right.
And estimates are that it was the same size as the Statue of Liberty. Now that's a big statue, especially in ancient times. That's a really big statue. I mean, the Statue of Liberty is an impressively big statue.
Sure, yeah.
But you couldn't sail a big ship between her legs. Again, stop.
No sniggering in the back.
So I just think it seems a little bit far-fetched. But, hey, they built a wall that was 700 feet high. They could do things like that.
True. I don't think there's anything that matches that in today's world.
That's true.
Either,
now,
but
apparently, the Titan of Braavos is two mountains that are connected by a stone arch. That's his bottom half. And they just built on top of that to make it look like a person.
Your hand gestures are perfectly describing this.
I thought they would help you. I'm not sure they're helping everyone. But I got to say, if I'm building on a stone arch connecting two mountains, I'm building as light as possible. Because I don't want that thing. Because that thing, that's got to be a little bit fragile,
right.
Yeah,
a little tenuous.
Exactly. And if it falls, it's blocking the entryway to your city for years. It would be a complete disaster.
And you said it's a fort, right?
Yes, so in the bit they built on top of it, which is basically the torso of the... there are, spy holes for shooting arrows out of, so if anyone tries to sail through.
I wonder if there's a weight limit on the people that pull duty in that.
All these skinny archers.
Like how there's a height limit for, jet pilots. I wonder if there's a weight limit to being allowed to get that job.
So, any news and notes? I can't think of anything. We'll go on.
I'm not sure how to bring this up, but I'm going to play a segment for you from a previous episode.
Okay.
And you let me know if you recall this segment.
Go for it.
Okay.
Last night, I actually had a dream about maesters, and it was a very specific and very odd dream. Now, I don't often dream about Game of Thrones, so this is news, I think. I think this belongs in the podcast. So my dream was a conversation between Bran and Jaime Lannister. Jaime has a theory that the Maesters are some kind of Freemason sort of cult who are secretly running the Seven Kingdoms. That their ravens are passing messages between them, and they know everything because their lords rely on them for writing things. They know everything, and that they're basically some kind of cult that runs the whole thing. And he's explaining this to 7-year-old Bran, who's lapping it up, presumably. Right. But totally, he said, it's the ravens. The ravens are everywhere. And this was my dream, and it was really weird. And I was like...
That's pretty cool, though.
I was, I do a little bit of dream fan fiction.
Yeah, I like it. You should probably write that down and send it to Martin.
Except it's crazy. I mean, that was Jaime Lannister talking to Bran for no reason about a crazy idea. I should write that fan fiction. Yeah. The thing is, again, I don't really believe in the plot. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, just to be clear. Okay, I don't literally remember saying any of that, but now I've heard it played and it was clearly my voice. Yes, I do basically remember that dream and saying those words.
Okay. Well, you're probably wondering why I bring this up. Well, my friend, I think you might be plagiarizing in your dreams.
I have no idea what you're talking about. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm about to tell you why. So when you were telling me that stuff, I kind of reacted to it honestly. I was like, wow, that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, because, I mean, I think just to let you know how the sausage is made here, I mean, a lot of the things we talk about, we pre-plan.
Yeah.
But that dream, I think that was the very first time you heard that dream. I think that was all kind of fresh to you. So your reaction, I will give you, was completely honest.
I was honestly reacting and thought it was a really cool idea, really interesting. But afterward, I just had this nagging memory that I'd heard this idea before. And so I sat on it, for a while and kind of gave up on it. But then I woke up one morning and had an epiphany.
I hope you mopped that up.
So I want to read a passage to you from a chapter in A Dance with Dragons.
Okay, but no spoilers. Let's be careful here.
Yes, I've cut out some of the content for brevity, and I've removed everything I could to prevent spoilers.
But don't worry, you've heard all this before.
This might sound familiar. I will say that none of the characters were named Jaime or Bran.
Okay.
So it starts with this is a conversation between two characters. I'm pretty much just giving the one character's side, but It starts with, if I were a monarch, the first thing I would do would be to kill those gray rats. This is in reference to the maesters. Sound familiar? So far, that first sentence, nothing wrong with that. They scurry everywhere, living on the leavings of the lords, chittering to one another, whispering in the ears of their masters. But who are the masters and who are the servants, truly? Every great lord has his maester, and every lesser lord aspires to one. If you don't have a maester, it's taken to mean that you are of little consequence. The grey rats read and write our letters, even for such lords as cannot read themselves. And who can say for certain that they are not twisting the words for their own ends? What good are they, I ask you?
Wow. That's fascinating. Now, we're pretending here a little bit that this is news to me. Mackelly came to me with this chapter a couple of weeks ago, and he said, look, read this. And he was very excited.
I was, when I realized it was like Christmas morning. I was like, I know, I think I know I've heard this before. And I went digging and I found it, and so I was like, oh my gosh, wait till you hear this. You'll be so excited.
So he was excited, I will grant you this. And this is all part of my defense here, by the way. So when I read the section of the chapter that he was pointing to with sort of like puppy dog eyes, like, yeah, see what it says there? I had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't have a first clue.
I could tell by the look on your face. You had no idea what I was talking about.
And he was like, your dream. And I was like, what dream? The dream you related in the podcast. What podcast? No, I'm not that bad, but I had zero recollection of having that dream or reporting it on the podcast. And certainly its content didn't seem to... I mean, I had no way of connecting these two. So what I'm saying is, I have a terrible memory. I have an appalling memory.
You have admitted to this for about as long as I've known you.
So you're now accusing me of plagiarizing a chapter of a book that I have not read for at least 5 years. It's 5 years since I read that chapter of that book. And somehow... almost word for word, that chapter stuck in my mind to the point where, on demand apparently, I was able to dream it up and report it in a podcast. I'm just saying, yes, obviously, chronologically, it looks bad for me doing the plagiarism, but I have a feeling that George Martin might be plagiarizing my fan fiction, is what I'm saying.
I guess it's possible, but... and that's not even the end of it. The character goes on to talk about how the maesters only use their first name, so you can't determine what their allegiances are, and really paints a picture of, like you said, like a Freemason society that is secretly running the Seven Kingdoms and controlling everything. Pretty much just what you said in your dream.
but this, so we actually, what happened was, we talked about this a little bit after I read the chapter, and you didn't play the podcast back to me. You just reminded me of the dream. And I was like, oh yeah, now I remember. It does sound a little bit like that dream I had. It was only when you played the podcast back to me that I realized how similar they were. So in the interim, we'd had some conversations at lunch with friends, and one of them, Joan, was saying, oh, this is clearly, you had this memory. There's no doubt about it. You had this memory. And I, with a terrible memory, said, no, there's no way I had this memory. I clearly independently invented this. But now, having seen them side by side, I'm convinced that I really did have this memory.
You had to have. It's too close.
It is just too close to be anything else. But then that suggests to me, I'm like, who knows what's in here? There must be just oceans, cathedrals of information in this brain that are just... No, I said that to Joan once I admitted to the fact that I'd plagiarized, and she said, no, it's more to do with something about that section of the book stuck with me. Something was happening as I was reading that piece of the book, which stuck in my mind. And that's why it came back. But I have no recollection of what that was. I barely remember reading that book. The character who speaks these words, I don't remember that character.
When I told you, I was like, this character, you were like, who? And I was like, during this scene, and you were like, what?
That I could somehow remember the words that were in that chapter without remembering anything else about it. Just seems a bit weird. So yes,
that's pretty fantastic, though,
yeah,
I gotta say.
We apologize profusely for the spoilers, but if you stick around for episode, I think I worked it out, episode 307,
Yes.
we will apologise again for having spoiled this back 301 episodes earlier.
Yeah, so just stick around for 290 some more episodes, and you will get that apology. So please, stick with us. Oh, that was good stuff. Real quick, though, we wanted to give a shout-out to Hestia, who reached out to us on Twitter recently.
Yeah, she binge listened while tidying the house and the baby slept.
Yes. We wanted to thank you so much for reaching out, and we were both very touched and enthused by your kindness, and we really hope that you will stick with us.
Yeah, and you're ahead of us, so you have to read super slowly and we'll catch you up.
Yes.
With a house to tidy and a baby to look after, you should be able to read slowly.
Yes, so thank you.
So in conclusion for this one, Kat's not very nice.
No, at least not to Jon.
No. She's under a lot of stress, but still.
Yeah.
Jon, well, we've said too much nice things about Jon. I think we're boring everyone.
Yeah, we're certainly on the Jon bandwagon.
I think we're both hoping that the Night's Watch turns out to be more fun than we think it's going to be.
He really wants to go.
He really wants to go. He is 14.
Yeah.
That's why they don't let kids sign up for the army. They would do it. And that's not a lifetime oath.
Right.
It's just, a bunch of time.
So, looks like Robb has the makings to be a good guy, too. And I'm glad we're getting a little more of the kids. Well, him and Sansa. We haven't had POVs.
Right, that's right.
Characters.
Or Baby Rickon either.
Oh, yes. That would be an interesting POV. But I hope to get to know Robb better.
I think we will. Yeah, they've got plenty of reasons for their rivalry between those two, but it looks like they've been able to suppress it. Of course, Robb now knows that Jon's going to the Night's Watch. So again, maybe that's improved his relationship with him for the same reasons that
True, that could be. Yeah, they're the same age. They're both boys. Robb is the future Lord of Winterfell. They're both apparently good at fighting. Jon with the sword, Robb with the lance, at least according to Jon. Yeah. Robb might disagree and say he's better with both. They're perfect candidates for a jealousy and sibling rivalry situation, but instead, Robb seems pretty fond of him.
Yeah. Arya definitely becoming a favourite. I hope she won't need to use that sword anytime soon.
She probably will be way better with this needle than she is with their stitchwork needle.
That's true. It really doesn't matter where you poke them. It will hurt. And things don't look great for Bran. Jon's description of him doesn't bode very well.
No, it does not.
And then the question is, and again, sort of the TV show sort of answered this, but the book's still sort of open about this. How long is Robert going to let Ned linger? I mean, remember when Bran fell, that was the day they were supposed to be leaving, basically. So they've been delayed by several weeks by all this.
Guess that's it, huh?
Yep.
All right. Well, as always, you can reach us at ghosts.harrenhal@gmail.com and go out and follow us on Twitter @ghostsharrenhal. And we now have a Facebook page.
Facebook? Oh, yes. Caps.
Our social media empire is growing by leaps and bounds daily. So please go out and follow us or like us on our Facebook page. That would be great.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.